Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your time today. We appreciate that. You've talked a lot about the assets and the sales. How do we make certain, and what is your process for ensuring that those funds go to humanitarian aid in Ukraine?
Thank you, Senator. It's incredibly important to make that those efforts to get those funds and then to have that insurance in place. What we were talking about today generally is having the ability, the power through statute to make that sort of transfer, which we need in order to facilitate it in the first instance. And then the question about how to do that smartly, how to do that in a way that will be useful, be impactful, be safe and secure. Is one.
Basically, you need fast action from Congress to put that in place.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me ask you about you talked a little bit about RICO with Senator Grassley and the enhancements that you're doing there with the money laundering. So these proposals that would aid in the prosecution and the asset forfeitures for Russia, is that going to extend to other high-level cash-rich criminals like the cartels or like the Chinese Communist Party and those syndicates?
The proposals that I'm familiar with aim at adding essentially sanctions violations and export control violations to the list of RICO predicates. So to that extent, it's talking about a particular kind of crime, but it's not. So
you don't see this being applied to other cash-rich criminals?
Cash-rich criminals are sanctioned in other in other contexts as well.
All right. Let me ask you about this. Listening to you talk today, I've thought about and looked up. Putin made $100 billion the first days of the war, the first 100 days of the war in Ukraine. And Senator Cornyn asked you about gold and gold sales. And what you're talking about, what you responded to Senator Graham, is all the forfeitures together are a few billion. So what would be more effective? Going after American energy production and bolstering that to take care of us and our allies so that we're not talking to authoritarian regimes, or the Biden proposal of going after the oligarchs and going after giving the gift of Nord Stream 2 to Putin. So what is going to be the most effective way to be certain Putin does not have the money to keep fighting this war? Is it the peanuts, comparatively, that are coming from asset forfeitures, or is it going to be to change that energy policy?
Thank you, Senator. I'll defer on the question of what gets sanctioned and what the economic impact to my friends at Treasury. Once something is sanctioned, it's our job at the department to make sure that there's no leak in that system.
But, you know, when you look at gold, when you look at oil, that is where you get the greatest effect, sanctioning, making certain that Russia, which is basically a big gas station with an army, does not have the ability to sell that oil, and making certain that we are not dealing with the communist Chinese, we're not dealing with Venezuela, we're not dealing with Iran when it comes to energy policy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.